Hello and welcome to another series of Tour de Core. In this case, we are talking about Gutenberg. And this is the fifth video from this series. And so far, we have looked at how we can develop blocks for Gutenberg. And in the first episode, we took a look at what blocks are, how do we create a simple Hello World block. And in the second episode, we took a look at dynamic blocks and how we can create those and how we can integrate with the REST API of WordPress. And Gutenberg has really good utilities for that make it super easy to just pull data from any post type or taxonomy or anything that's exposed through the REST API and just use that in your blocks. And in the third episode, we took a look at how we can convert a real world example of a Beaver Builder module into a Gutenberg block, and that worked very well, I'd say. In addition to that, we also took a look at how we can use Gutenberg blocks as a replacement for simple meta boxes. And with some caveats, that worked pretty well as well. And then in the last episode, we took a look at templates, and those were really easy to make, which was nice. So you could basically define a template for a custom post type and just go with that. And that kind of makes it so you don't really need meta boxes anymore in some situations, and you can define the layout that you want for your custom post type. And eventually that will come to page templates as well, but right now it's just limited to custom post types. So that was pretty cool stuff. And today I want to take a step back and look at some of the more beginner focused things. I had some feedback that for people that are experienced with React and NPM and all of that, it might be super easy for them to jump right in and, kick it off where we did in the beginning of the series. But for people that have never written stuff for React and haven't really compiled much or haven't used NPM much, it might be quite confusing to figure it out. So that's what we're doing today. We're taking a step back. We're looking at the stuff that we use in order to compile our JSX files to JS. And then the second part of this will be finding some good sources of news or information about Gutenberg. And as we get closer to launching Gutenberg, I assume there will be more and more sources of information. So it's going to be quite important to find some good ones that you can rely on. And obviously better ones could come out as we get closer to Gutenberg, but yeah, it's not a bad idea to get set up now. So, I guess we can start by talking a tiny bit about NPM. So in case you don't know, NPM is a package manager for Node, and I believe you can install it on pretty much any OS. You can definitely install it on Linux, and I'm fairly certain you can install it on Windows and Mac OS as well. And so you're just gonna have to follow the instructions for whichever OS you're using. And here's a little tip for anyone that might be running on Windows 10. For quite a while now, almost a year, more than a year maybe, Windows 10 has Bash built into it. Well, you install it separately, but what it does is it allows you to run a headless Ubuntu, sort of say. You could, if you really want it, you can also run graphical programs through Bash on Windows, but in general it comes headless. That means you only interact with it through the terminal. And what it does is it allows you to play with Ubuntu without having to set up your own virtual machine or having to hire a VPS or anything like that. And yeah, so if you're going to be working with Linux servers in any capacity, I would highly recommend that if you're on Windows, because that will make it easy for you to get to know Linux, how to use it, Bash, and all of that, installing packages, using packages, and all that. And yeah, so basically, first thing you need to do is install npm. And in the case of something like Linux, Debian based Linux, you would pretty much just do sudo apt. I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced. I've never heard anyone pronounce it. Install and then npm, and that's gonna just install npm for you, and it's gonna set it up, and it's gonna take care of all the dependencies and so on. For Windows, I'm guessing that there is gonna be an executable that you can just run and have everything set up for you. And for macOS, I'm guessing you can use something like, what was that? I forgot the name of it. Homebrew? Yes, Homebrew, or something similar. Okay, so once you do that, the next step would be to get yourself set up with a package.json file. Now this will usually, now here's where it comes, here's where you need to make a decision based on your own personal preferences. Usually you will place the package.json in the root of your project. I would say you would place it in wherever your Git folder or SVN folder is, whatever version control you're using. So if you're used to adding Git, setting up Git to be in the root, of your WordPress site, so where wp, config, index.php and all those files are, then that's where you can set up package.json as well. However, I personally prefer to just set up Git repositories inside of each part of a project that I'm working on. So for example, if I'm working on a theme, I would set up the Git repository inside the theme. If I'm working on a plugin, I would set it up inside the plugin. And if I'm working on both, I would just have two different repositories that I work on. But anyway, so once you figure out where you want to place your package.json, you're gonna have to add kind of like this stuff. Obviously there's, oh look at that, Visual Studio Code is pretty nice. Yeah, so it's basically a JSON file, and you have a bunch of different properties about your project. And the specific ones that we care about in this case are the dev dependencies. And so in this case, we want to install Babel core, Babel CLI, Babel ESLint, but I don't know if we use ESLint, or Lodash for that matter. But basically, you want to set up all the packages that you're going to need. I'm using Babel to compile JSX into plain JavaScript. I don't know, I'm not 100% sure if there is another option. I know that you can use Webpack together with Babel, and we'll talk about Webpack in a little bit as well. But to get you started, you can pretty much just use this package.json, which is, by the way, in the Github repository, which can be found, give me a second. So there's a repository set up for this project, and you can find it right here, github.com/pag-dev/tor-core-Gutenberg. And usually that link is in any of the videos, so you can find it easily. And you can just pretty much copy this package.json and get yourself up and running. So these are dependencies, and these are installed by running npm install. So inside of your project, wherever your package.json is, you're going to want to run npm install, and this will run for a little bit, and it will fetch all the dependencies that you need, and it will install them for you. And once that's in place, what you can do is then use scripts, npm scripts, which are run like this: npm run, and then the name of your script, whatever it is. So npm run watch react will run this, which in turn starts watching the specified files in watch. So anything that's in assets.jsx, and I'm saying anything, but I feel like it's maybe just JSX files. I'm not 100% sure. But for our purposes, JSX files inside of assets.jsx, which is right here. So when any of these files changes or when a new file is added, it's going to compile automatically and create a file with the same name with just a different extension .js in our directory. So we say watch for changes in here and compile to here. And you can see that initially when you start running Babel with watch, it will do a run, so we'll compile all of your files, and then as you make changes, in this case I'm just going to hit save. I guess that's not really going to work, but I'm going to make a little change, hit save, and as you can see, it automatically compiled my file to plain JavaScript. So once you have that up and going, you pretty much are good to go at that point. You can just run npm run watch react inside of your project directory, and it will automatically watch for changes for you. Now, I'm a little bit of a set and forget person. I tend to get the things that are not super crucially important for me just up and running, and then not think twice about them. But this cross-env package is something that I found in Gutenberg in particular when I was going through the source code. And I'm going to figure out exactly what it does right now because, like I said, I'm not 100% sure. But what it allowed me to do is allow me to just run Babel instead of the way I used to run it, which used to be something like node modules, Babel CLI, then Babel.js or something like that, instead of just typing Babel. And so that was nice. So I just added that in. And so perhaps we don't even need cross environment. I don't know. Huh. What about if we try so I don't know what its problem was. Anyway, so you can install a lot of packages this way, and it's super easy. You just run npm install every time and it will just automatically do it for you. Something you're going to want to do is add your node modules to your gitignore file. So in gitignore you can see that we're excluding everything in node modules itself. That way it doesn't get committed to the repository, because anyone can just run npm install and we're not bogging down our repository with files that can be accessed easily. With that said, let's talk a little bit about what other options there are. So a lot of people are using Webpack, and I'm not super familiar with Webpack, I'm going to admit that. But the main difference that I see is that with Webpack you get a single file, so you can have, you can have all of your files like that, but then Webpack will take all of those and in the end compile them together, and they all work nicely. In your files you use stuff like require something like the name of your module or whatever that's called. And the main thing I don't like about that is that you could end up with a big huge bundle. But actually, let me tell you about the positive sides. So the positive sides are, with Webpack, you can just create a single bundle for your plugin or theme or whatever you're working on. And that can include your dependencies as well. So you're depending on React. Cool, you can put that in there. You're depending on another library. You can put that in there too. And it's gonna become this isolated package that you can just take and put anywhere and it will just work. Whereas with the other approach, and this is specific, well, probably not specific to WordPress, but with WordPress in particular, with the other approach, you're kind of hoping that you don't step on anyone else's toes, because you don't know if somebody else is loading React. There's no way to tell. I mean, you can call your script React and just hope that other developers will do the same. But then what if they're loading an older version of React and you are loading the latest version of React? Then you got either your scripts will stop working or their scripts will stop working. Because if they load the older version of React and you're using new APIs, then your JavaScript will not be able to work anymore. And that's kind of the problem with WordPress and plugins and, you know, doing that whole mashup. But I personally prefer, when working on custom sites, you know, stuff that is going to be for one specific client, where I'm going to have greater control over what plugins are installed and, you know, the whole environment. I prefer doing multiple files, because then I can say, you know, register all of my files, and I can let WordPress do all of the dependency handling, because it's okay at that when, you know, it's your own dependencies. So as you can see here, I'm registering one script, TDC base, and then I'm registering all of the other individual blocks as separate scripts. And granted, in this case, we are pretty much going to want them all to be on the same page, but I could have another JavaScript that only is supposed to load on the front end. Or I can have a JavaScript that only is supposed to load when there's a given block. So, you know, when I'm loading a dynamic block, I will then enqueue my JavaScript. But yeah, so that's kind of the main difference. Another benefit of Webpack is that it can actually do something that's called tree shaking. So it's going to look at, so if you're using a library, say you're using _JS, but you're probably not using every single function from _JS. So Webpack will see that and it will say, okay, so you don't need any of those components from _JS. Let's just keep the ones that you're using. So instead of, you know, so your whole bundle gets lighter with tree shaking, because you get rid of the stuff that you don't need. So that's kind of nice. I mean, that's pretty nice, but yeah, it depends really. You kind of have to weigh the benefits of each one and consider which one is best for your case. Having said that, I think that kind of covers our basis here on just getting set up with this. Again, I'm a set and forget person. I don't feel the need to understand every single thing that is happening when I'm using libraries and stuff. And you might say that's a bad approach. You know, who am I to judge? But for me, I prefer to focus on the stuff that I know and the stuff that is important for me, and I really focus on that. And then the other stuff that is helping me in some way, I like to, you know, if it's working, and I don't want to break it, I don't want to mess with it and making it work. With that said, it is good to, you know, take a look every now and then at your tools and see how we can improve them. So that's about it, really. If you want to just get it up and running, you can pretty much just use this package JSON. You know, you can change your names and stuff. But yeah, just copy this package.json, set it up in your plugin or theme folder or whatever, adjust the paths accordingly for your use case, and install the packages that you need, and you're good to go. There's nothing else to it, really. And by the way, if you do set up your package.json at the root of your site, then you're going to want to adjust these paths. So, you know, instead of assets.jsx, you might want to say something like that would be content, themes, my theme, assets.jsx, and then, you know, obviously the same on the other end as well. So that's how you can have package.json at the root of your project, at the root of your WordPress install, instead of individually in the theme. Well, that kind of concludes it. I think that's a good conclusion. So anyone that's really struggling to get up to speed with this, that'll be my recommendation to you. I mean, obviously it's good to have the general knowledge, it's good to understand what's going on, but if you just kind of have to get up and running, you can just find the code that gets you up and running and focus on the stuff that is more important. That's my advice. Now on to the next topic. Finding some good sources of news and information about Gutenberg. So it's gonna be pretty critical, like I said before, especially if you want to keep up to date. Gutenberg is constantly updated, and it will be until the release, and I'm guessing shortly after the release we're going to see a lot of updates. So it's going to be very important to know when things become available, when things change. If something changes, hopefully nothing major will change in the API of Gutenberg, but we don't know. It's not in its final form yet, so we can only guess. Now, I would say the first and foremost place where you can look for information, and it's probably gonna scare people, but I would say that first place, if you really want to get to it, is the GitHub repository. There's like no other place. This is the center of discussions around Gutenberg with all the issues that are in there. There's a lot of discussion going on in there. This is where all the code is. This is where all of the things are happening. Yes, I'll remember that word. Yeah, so this is the place. However, it's probably gonna be super overwhelming. I mean, come on, it's 506 issues that are currently open and over 1,600 that are closed. So, you know, if you don't want to go this route, nobody would blame you. But if you really are, if you have a lot of time, if you feel, you know, confident enough to be able to read through the issues and the technical stuff and look over the source code that is being brought in with every release, then yeah, totally go at it. But yeah, it could be overwhelming, but I definitely recommend, you know, if you have a problem with Gutenberg, come here, see if there's an issue about it, and if there is an issue about it, see what people have said. Are they going to fix it? Are they not going to fix it? Join the discussion, make your voice heard. If you feel like you have something that if you feel like Gutenberg is missing something, or, you know, is doing something completely wrong, make your voice heard. That's the only way you can make a difference. Well, okay, I'm not gonna say that's the only way that you can make a difference. That's one of the main ways in which you can make a difference. Now, if you don't want to do that, to look over tons and tons of code and issues and all that, then obviously the next best place is going to be, and let me find that for you real quick, it's going to be the Make WordPress Core blog. And this is a side note, if you are not following any of the Make WordPress blogs, I highly recommend it. Let's see. Yeah, see? So here, all of the ways, all of the different sub-blogs. I really recommend you join the ones that are interesting to you, and maybe a couple that are not interesting to you, and just subscribe to their email list. That way you're going to get news and updates and heads up on stuff that's going to change. You're going to learn about new opportunities. It's a good place to engage in the community. You know, even if it's passively, it's good because then you're going to hear about stuff and you're going to hear about it on time and from the main source. With that said, so we have core. I believe that's where they post. Yes. Okay. So make the wordpress.org/core. And I believe, yes, there we go. So once you subscribe, you're gonna get obviously a whole lot of emails. Well, I mean, not a whole lot of emails, but you're gonna get a decent amount of emails. But some of those are definitely going to be about Gutenberg. And alternatively, you can find a way, RSS feeds, anyone, to subscribe just to the Gutenberg tag. But again, it's worth it to just get an email about WordPress in particular. So once you do that, you're gonna start seeing about updates about Gutenberg. And this is an amazing place to learn about the latest changes that are getting into Gutenberg itself. So let me give you as an example this latest blog post about Gutenberg 2.0. They did an amazing job at really giving you a bird's eye view of what happened in this release. And it's a rabbit hole. Like, I sat down and I read through it, and look at that, like it just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls. I sat down and I looked through most of those, and I opened up some of the issues, I opened up some of the pull requests, and that kind of gave me an idea of what is going on, you know, what changes have emerged, where things are heading, that kind of stuff. And even if you don't go into pull requests, you know, even if you don't go to individual issues, and they link to all those, see, all those links, different pull requests. Yeah, even if you don't do that, again, just a bird's eye view of things is great. Like, it's spot on. And it comes from the people that work on Gutenberg, so it's, you know, it's pretty correct. Again, this too might be overwhelming for some people, and I understand that. That's fine. You know, there's a whole lot of stuff. Some of it is, you know, minor things that were fixed, so not super important, you know, not something that you would worry about. Some of these are quite technical, so depending on who you are, what you do, this can still be, you know, quite scary, and that's fine. So the next place I would recommend going to, if you're a social person, go to Twitter. Luckily Twitter is loading now. It wasn't loading right as I was starting the stream. So what you can do on Twitter, you know, do the Gutenberg hashtag and then look for the latest post, the latest tweets from people, or the top tweets. You know, with the latest tweets you can find stuff, you can join discussions, you can make new friends. Same with the top tweets, obviously, but and with the top tweets you can find the stuff that, you know, is getting picked up by the community and being important. So yeah, that's another good place. Then something that just came up, and you know, I don't know much about it yet, but I just started following this account today. Gutenberg News, and they say they're going to be a curated collection of Gutenberg tutorials, code snippets, and resources, and it's managed by this guy at Array HQ. Again, I haven't seen much about it. He did put up there is a website, but obviously there isn't a whole lot of stuff there just yet. You can submit stuff, so you know, if there's something useful about Gutenberg, you can go on and add it. Yeah, that was not like that today. So they're changing things. That's good. But you know, like, this is another great place to go to. And I think the final place is, let me just find the name. So there's another curated list that I found. That is not, I don't like when Twitter does this. Come on. it lies to me. So I'm going to mispronounce her name, Bridget, maybe. I'm sorry if I butchered your name, but I think she's managing another curated list of Gutenberg useful resources. I just have to figure out where it is and find it, because I did. Oh, she tweets a lot. I don't tweet that much, so it's easy for me to to find the stuff that I'm looking for. Okay, just a second. That might take a little bit. That might take a minute for me to find it. But yeah, so there's another curated list. She actually found my first tweet when I was saying I'm considering doing this series, and she added it there, and that kind of pushed me over to definitely do it and commit to it. So that was pretty cool. Last year somewhere. Come on. I'm going to find it. Getting closer. And closer. Okay, Storyfight. Yes, there we go. Whoops. Yes, there we go. So this is the other curated list. I believe she is the one that's... Yeah, so she's the one curating this list. And she keeps adding new stuff. It says last updated 2 days ago. Wait, maybe. When was last updated? Yeah, January 16th. So, 2 days ago, she posted new stuff. So, yeah, another great place to take a look and look for stuff about Gutenberg in particular. With that said, I think that's my list of kind of resources that I'm looking for and looking into. Again, my main one, WordPress core, make.wordpress.org/core. It's the best place. I don't have the time to do the whole GitHub thing, but somebody might have the time to do that. And then make WordPress.org/core, or specifically the Gutenberg tag there, and then Gutenberg news and this Storyfy thing. So yeah, that's about it. I think this is gonna be like the shortest stream in the series. I feel like I could talk a little bit more about another topic that I want to talk about, but I am not well prepared for it. Yeah, we'll just leave it for next time. I'd rather do something. I'd rather do my research before talking about it. So yeah, well, with the shortest episode of this series, that's all for today. I'm going to post an update with all the links, and they will be in the video description as well, so you can find them and go get information, because it's very important. Yeah, so with that said, I think this is all for today. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you again next Thursday. Feel free to subscribe to the channel or go and look at the other videos in the series to get more development, because that's good. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. Have a good day or night. See you. Bye.